Hey guys, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. Welcome back. This week we'll be working on a sugar version of the Foxglove flower. If you know this flower, you'll know that it is toxic, and so you wouldn't want to put a real flower on the cake. So we'll be making a safe sugar version of this flower. Now for this tutorial, you won't need any special cutters or veiners. We're going 100% freehand. You can't really get the sizes wrong. Any size you make will fit somewhere on the flower, and the varying sizes, in my opinion, just make it more realistic and more beautiful. Let's get right to it. I'm going to start off with some flower paste in color pink because that's what I want my flower to be. I'll be using a Dresden tool, the small end of a rolling ball tool, and a fondant sculpting tool that has a pointed end. Now for the larger flowers, what I'm going to do is just make a teardrop shape, and on the fatter end I'm going to use my fondant tool and poke it almost at an angle so that there's a shorter top end and a longer bottom end. I don't want to make this the same size all around. I just go ahead and form it, and I don't poke it all the way through. I need to have a thicker end to my flower to have the floral wire stick to later. Now with the small end of my rolling ball tool, I'm just going to go ahead and tug out the opening of my foxglove trumpet. I'm not really looking to widen it very much. It will do that naturally. I more so want to thin it out. Then with the smaller end of my Dresden tool, I'm going to score it from the inside out, just a bit, nothing too deep, and I'll score it all around just to give it some texture, almost like a bit of veining since we're not using any veiners today. This is also going to help my foxglove widen up on the end just a bit and get nice and thin so it looks more natural. Once I have that, I fold out my cone to give it sort of a lip, and I'm just making sure that my center is nice and fixed. And there goes my trumpet. Now with a 28 gauge floral wire, I'm going to hook it, dip it into some edible glue, wipe off the excess, and thread it down the middle. I want to make sure it hooks on that thicker part of the flower that has that extra paste because again, I did not poke my fondant tool all the way through. I pinch it to the wire, and then I'm just going to lay it on a wavy foam board to dry once I'm happy with it. For this one, my veining was a little harsher than I wanted to, so I just smooth it out with the rolling ball tool once again, and then I lay it to dry. We're going to repeat this for as many times as you need. It's all going to depend on how large and how tall you want your foxglove to be. For the smaller trumpets on my foxglove, I'm going to repeat the exact same process. The only thing is that as the flower gets smaller, you need less and less details. For this small of a trumpet, I don't really need the rolling ball tool. It's a bit large, so I'm just going to use the Dresden tool to score it a bit and thin out the lips of my trumpet, the most outer part, and then use my fingers as a resting board as the Dresden tool sort of folds out the trumpet. Again, with my 28 gauge wire, I'm going to give it a hook, add a bit of edible glue, and then thread it down the center, making sure to pinch my flower paste to the wire. For the tiniest of my buds, all I'm really going to do is poke a little center hole in them and then thread some wire through them. Some of my tiniest buds won't even have a hole in them. They'll just be a little teardrop shape of flower paste attached to a wire. Now once my trumpets are dry enough, I'll start adding some calyxes to it. And I'm going to go and just use a generic calyx cutter for this. I'll thin out the ends of it just a bit so it's not too clunky. And then adding some edible glue to the center of the calyx, I'll thread it through the flower wire and then just adjust the calyx however I like. Some of mine will be a bit more open, others will be more snug to the flower. Especially for these smaller buds, if you don't have a small enough calyx cutter, then you can just use some scissors to cut out a few of the calyx petals. For this one, I'm just going to use 4, and using my fingers, I'll smash it out so that it's nice and thin. And then do the same process again of adding edible glue and threading my flower right through it and adjusting it to the base of my flower. Now the fun part of painting it. Regardless of the colors that you use, you'll want to start off with some white. So I'm using some white Americolor gel diluted with a bit of vodka. And then using a brush, I'm going to blot a bunch of dots. I don't really want to paint them. I'm just going for a blotted effect. So I'm pressing down my brush on them, and some will be larger, some will be smaller, some will be touching each other, others will be spread apart. There's really no rhyme or reason to this. Once the white has dried, then using a concentrated gel color diluted just a bit, I want a dark color here. I'm going to go through the same process, and on every white speck, I'm going to blot some color. For me, this is a dark fuchsia. I believe the color is called Claret. And again, no rhyme or reason. Some of my blots are larger, others are smaller. On some, you'll see a lot of white. On others, you'll barely see any white at all. There is no way to get this wrong. Also, just as a note, I'm leaving these colors on the bottom of my flower and up the edges. I do this for any open trumpets that I have, not for the tiny little buds. For the smallest buds that I mentioned earlier, the ones that might not even have a hole in the center, I do leave them just entirely green so it looks like there's no petals poking out just yet. Now to begin wiring this, because they are going to be so close together, I'm going to rip my floral thread in half and use it that way. I'll start off with the smallest green bud and attach 2 buds to its side just below. And as I'm attaching each one, I'm wrapping the floral tape around them, making sure that none of the wire is showing. For all of the tiny buds, including the tiny ones that have flowers, I will be layering them not on top of each other, but alternating so that you can see each one if you're looking at it from the top, and they will be very snug together. While I do this, I do keep the buds also facing upward so that it's easier for me to attach them to the wire. If at any point you're not sure if you're putting them too close together or not close together enough, you can go and fold them out a bit to check, and then just pop them back in place facing upwards so they stay out of your way once you see what you like. And then I just continue this process of adding one by one each of the little trumpets until I get all the way down. The further down I go, the more spread apart they'll be because the trumpets are larger, so they just take up more space. You don't need as many of them. Once I'm done with all my trumpets, I just run the floral wire at a 45-degree angle all the way down my wire to cover all of the wires. And then I adjust my trumpets facing out and down. Now, while the foxglove does grow straight up, I think it looks a bit more natural if I bend the wire just a bit to give it a little bit of movement. And so I carefully do that. And that's it. Your foxglove is all ready to place on a cake or in a little vase for you to keep. Now, if you like this tutorial, please do give me a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I would super appreciate that. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future tutorials, please do leave it down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you're interested in the flower paste that I use, I do have it linked in the description as well. It is a flexible homemade flower paste and I have the course available. If not, I will see you guys for the next tutorial.